Hello, Crown Corner fans, it's your host Crown, ready to bring you another batch of fascinating, sometimes outrageous stories from everyday life. You never know what's around the corner, and these tales prove just that. From the unexpected to the unbelievable, we've got it all covered. So settle in, relax, and let's embark on this storytelling journey together. Remember, if you enjoy these stories, hit that like button and subscribe for more. Now, let's get into it. This incident happened a few weeks ago and I still can't get my head around it, but here it goes anyways. I'm a retired veteran, and this is a story about an ordinary day that turned extraordinary. My wife Mary and I decided to dine out at a new restaurant in town, one known for being service dog friendly. My faithful companion Buddy, a well-trained service dog, was with us. He helps me with my PTSD and is more than just a pet. He's part of our family. As we entered the restaurant, the staff welcomed us warmly. We found a comfortable spot near the window and Buddy lying quietly by our table. The day was bright and we were in high spirits, looking forward to a good meal. We were in the middle of a conversation when our peaceful lunch was interrupted by a loud, disgusted voice from the next table. Why is there a dog in here? This is so unhygienic. I turned to see a woman, probably in her mid-30s, glaring at Buddy with contempt. Trying to remain calm, I explained, "Ma'am, Buddy is a service dog. He's allowed to be here." Her face twisted into a scowl. "I don't care what he is. I don't want to eat my meal with a dog nearby. It's gross." Mary squeezed my hand under the table, a silent plea to keep my cool. I faced combat, but confronting anger in civilian life was always a different kind of challenge. The woman's voice grew louder, attracting the attention of the other patrons and a manager, a young black man. He approached our table with a concerned look. "Is there a problem here?" the manager asked, addressing the woman. "Yeah, there is," she snapped. "I've been forced to dine next to a filthy animal. I demand you remove it, or I'll leave." The manager, with a calm demeanor, replied, "Ma'am, the dog is a certified service animal and has every right to be here. We welcome all customers, including those with service animals." The woman's anger took a new turn. "Oh, so now it's about race. You're siding with them because I'm black." The manager, taken aback and kind of chuckled because he is black as well. He responded, "Ma'am, this has nothing to do with race. I am simply upholding the restaurant's policy and the law." The woman, now furious, stood up abruptly, knocking her chair over. "You're all racists. I'll make sure everyone knows about this." As she turned to storm out, she swung her purse angrily, hitting Buddy on his head, and the whole restaurant gasped in shock. My military training kicked in. I stood up, shielding Buddy, who whined softly. "That's enough. You've crossed the line." Mary was on her feet too, her eyes filled with tears. "How could you hurt an innocent dog?" The woman, realizing her mistake, tried to leave, but the manager was quick to act. "I am calling the police. You can't assault an animal and expect to walk away." The police arrived shortly, and after taking statements from us, the staff, and several eyewitnesses, they arrested the woman for animal cruelty. The manager apologized profusely for the incident, but we assured him it wasn't his fault. As we left the restaurant, several customers came up to us offering kind words and pats for Buddy. It was a small gesture, but it meant the world to us. Mid-pandemic, my boss disappeared. Just as we were gearing up for our most challenging, time-intensive project in the last 5 years, he dropped off the face of the earth. We kept working for a week or so without him because everything was virtual, and the virtual work world was still so new, so we didn't really need him. We were delegating tasks ourselves and completing things on our own. We spoke to co-workers maybe twice a week, but some decisions were beyond our discretion. But we could not move forward on those aspects of the project until we received a response from him. After about 7 to 10 total days of silence, we called his boss's boss, who informed our team that our boss had COVID, so wasn't able to work right now. We took that at face value, of course, and sent him letters of well wishes and didn't bother him with work stuff, or ask why he was able to notify his boss but not us. 3 weeks go by, still not a word. We're beginning to discuss amongst ourselves whether or not he's maybe dead. We're terrified and horrified and so concerned. We're contemplating calling his extended family. We're sending flowers and care packages to his apartment. Meanwhile, the project has descended into chaos because no leader was appointed in our boss's stead. So we are forced to navigate several layers of bureaucracy in order to accomplish most anything at all. Whereas in the past, he would have just signed off in real time. Around week 4 or 5, one of our coworkers suggested that he doesn't really have COVID, but is instead using it as an excuse to take time off. We all jump all over our coworker, asking how he could insinuate something like that, and lamenting about what a tragedy our boss is probably living through. People were chilly to him for days after that. Week 7, we're undertaking a letter writing campaign to upper management demanding an acting boss be appointed while ours is recovering. The project is a month behind schedule. We're all working overtime every day, sometimes on weekends, without extra compensation, just to keep up with the cluster crab of the boss's sudden absence. Week 8, he finally reappears, logging into a morning meeting as though nothing happened. He looks well rested, well fed, and has a tan. Not at all like someone who's just come out of the other side of a 6-week respiratory virus. He says something quickly to the effect of, "Yeah, that was brutal. Glad to be better and glad to be back. Let's get to work." But doesn't want to talk about what happened or answer any of our questions like, "Were you in the hospital? What was it like?" and so on. Fast forward to about 4 or 5 months after this, my sister sends me a promo for a fairly new reality show. I'd never heard of it, but it's on a major platform. She says, "Isn't this a guy a friend of yours or something? I swear I've seen him and you together." I watched the trailer for this show and lo and behold, there is my boss participating as a contestant on a reality TV show. It did not take long for me to put the pieces together and realize he took extended leave to go on TV that he knew he wouldn't otherwise get during this massive project. And he lied about it under the guise of vicious disease that nearly all of us had lost a loved one to. I sit and stew with this information, unsure of how to handle it. I know confronting him won't get me very far, but I can just do nothing, right? I'm not close enough with any of my colleagues to discuss this with them and trust that they wouldn't run off and send an all-company email about it. So I slipped on it a few nights and then the opportunity fell right in my lap. I got an email from corporate encouraging teams still working remotely to plan virtual social functions, to keep a collegial culture going and to stay in touch. Among the suggestions were game night, trivia, a watch party. With the premiere of the show only a couple weeks away, I got busy telling everyone how I've been meaning to get into this show. And it's so enticing and exciting. Basically lay in the groundwork to guilt them into coming to an impromptu virtual watch party of ours. I offered to get special shirts made up and send them to each person's house. Whatever I had to do to get the attention of the corporate. Finally, I sent an invite to all my boss's bosses and any other members of corporate I could justify inviting without making a total jerk of myself. Because this is entirely virtual, my boss is unable to overhear any of the chatter. He doesn't realize I'm hyping up this show, and he doesn't realize I've planned a watch party for it. I wasn't inviting him unless he had the balls to explicitly ask about it. I was hoping he wouldn't have heard about it at all, not until afterwards. That was really the only way this could work. The night comes and I'm screen sharing the show to a whopping 64 people, a huge chunk of my department. Many members of corporate had shown up because I was the only person stupid enough to buy into their virtual social work party scheme, so they felt pressured to support it. I was holding my breath, hoping this would go my way, bracing myself for some kind of curveball. But there wasn't even that dramatic of a build-up. Right at the outset, they introduced the premise, which included the contestants being in a COVID-safe bubble in an exotic location, and gave a brief overview of each contestant. As my boss was introduced right down to what he did for work, and I could see people register delight and surprise, then go blank, just before sliding into confusion and rage. The chat took a drastic turn from "oh my god then, I knew him when," and all sorts of pithy jokes to a brave member of my team, or perhaps one just pushed a tad too far by all the extra hours he pulled in this douche's absence. He sent a message, "Wait, when was this filmed?" My audience dropped from 64 to 58 to mid-30s, and by the time the episode was over, It was just me and the other 15 core members of our team. One asked if I'd already known, but some members of the team are very close to the boss, so all I said was, well, I definitely do now, and wrapped up the call pretty quickly after that. Perhaps one of the best bonuses is that you could already tell from episode 1 that the character arc the show assigned to our boss was bumbling idiot. He had his true colors on in full display, and some production massaging up them to the 11th degree. The boss was fired, my good buddy was promoted to his place, and I'm an office legend now, especially since no one is 100% sure whether or not it was intentional. And it was all so satisfying that it was almost worth the dozens of hours of uncompensated overtime that led to it. Hey Crown Corner friends, enjoying the show? Click that like button to show some love and drop a comment to share your thoughts. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe to join our amazing community for more awesome stories. Alright, let's dive back into our next tale. This one is kind of different. I was working at Blockbuster as an assistant manager while I was going to school. I would go to classes during the day and work the closing shift. I am not sure if it was a company or district policy, but they wanted the manager and assistant managers to work a variety of shifts, with each one working at least one opening and one closing shift per week. I had no problem with that, but let the manager know that, because of my class schedule, I would only be able to open on a weekend. He was fine with that because no one really wants to open on a weekend anyway. I have been there for about 6 months when we had a manager change. I explained to the new manager about my school schedule and the arrangement with the previous manager. The new manager didn't like that arrangement and wanted his assistant managers to have more flexibility. I told her I understood, but I wasn't to give up school for this job, and gave my 2-week notice. I rarely saw the new manager because she opened on the days that I closed. I worked my normal schedule for the next 2 weeks. A few days before my last day, I looked at the next week's schedule and I was scheduled for my normal schedule. I enjoyed the job. I got paid a little over minimum wage to talk to people about movies, and it fit my school schedule. The only reason I was leaving was because a new manager wanted me to be more flexible. I thought that maybe the new manager had changed her mind and was willing to be more flexible. Since I had given my notice, I could have left my uniform on a manager's desk and dropped my key in a return box after locking up the store. But since I enjoyed the job and the schedule I was scheduled to fit my schedule, I decided to continue working. The next week I was still on schedule, and I kept working and I kept getting paid. This happened for about 6 weeks. Then I went in to open the store on a Sunday after being out the previous day. I opened the door and went to turn off the alarm. The alarm said I entered the incorrect code, so I entered it again. Was the same result? After the third attempt, the alarm started going off and the police were automatically dispatched. I went out front and to get away from the wailing sirens and to wait for the police to arrive. When the police arrived, I explained the situation and showed them my lanyard and showed them that I had the key to the store. I told the officer, "I do work here, lady." The officer wanted to talk to the manager, but since I had only met her the one time, I didn't have her number with me. I explained to the officer where the schedule book was and that it had everyone's number in it. She went in and got the book and called the store manager. I could tell the officer was looking concerned as she was talking to the manager. After she got off the phone, she asked me if I wanted to change my story. I said no, that I was just there on my normal shift to open the store. The officer told me that the manager was on her way down, but informed the officer that I used to work there but quit about 6 weeks ago. I nervously laughed and explained the ordeal to the officer. I could tell she didn't believe me until I suggested she look at the schedule. She even commented that I was scheduled for 4 days the upcoming week. The manager finally arrived and talked to the officer. While they were talking, I took off my polo shirt and handed it to the manager along with my lanyard and the keys to the store. The manager then looked flabbergasted and asked me who was going to close the store next week. And the officer and I looked even more flabbergasted, looked at each other, and I replied, "Not me. I don't work here, lady." I used to work in a microbiology lab in a hospital. We had a big staff, lots of people coming and going, and the managerial staff were honestly not very good. Most of them had been promoted due to seniority of lab experience and qualifications, and very few had any management training whatsoever. A big issue I had with management was that they would arrange collections for co-workers selectively. Usually they would only remember to do it for managerial staff, but there was an exception for staff on every level to chip in. So I took it upon myself to organize the forgotten collections, leave-in presents, significant birthdays, and collections for new parents for members of staff at every level, not just the ones who were chummy with the heads of department. This colleague, I'll call her Linda, was an older woman with a lifetime of experience working for a well-known travel agency that had recently shut most of its branches nationwide. Linda resented being trained by younger staff, even though she had no clue about anything remotely scientific. She was lazy and would refuse to do tasks she found boring, even if they were essential for lab maintenance. But worst of all, she was a bully. She particularly enjoyed picking on an autistic colleague and anyone who seemed vulnerable. This culminated in her trying to make Sarah jump as a prank after she learned Sarah was particularly jumpy and prone to panic attacks when triggered. We never disclosed this, but it was due to her past in an abusive relationship. Linda thought that people who were triggered were snowflakes and woke. On a particularly busy day, Linda jumped suddenly at Sarah, who responded in flight or fight mode and punched Linda in the face, breaking her glasses and busting her nose. Naturally, Linda couldn't handle the humiliation and the dirty looks she received after that. Everyone was unanimously supportive of Sarah. She handed in her notice and found a job as a carer. I had spent a lot of time training her and decided to do a collection for her, as I did for everyone. And I did feel kinda bad for her, even though she was dreadful. While I've been training her, she told me a lot about her personal gripes. She didn't like chocolates with raisins or nuts in. She didn't like books as gifts, homework. She didn't like when people bought her bathing products, intimate, inappropriate, presumptive, and insulting, and she thought candles were for hippies. To be frank, I think she was making a joke about some of these, but she was also very rude about hippies around the Jamaican colleague who wore dreadlocks. I got a lackluster collection for her, and we got her a leaving card signed by everyone in the department, including Sarah. Some fancy chocolate-covered fruit, a gorgeous copy of Wuthering Heights, my least favorite book at school, re-gifted bath bombs, and incense sticks with a wooden holder tray. Honestly, she was beaming when she was given them, and she seemed genuinely touched. I hope she's happy now, and who knows, maybe she's an excellent care worker. I'm not sure if this counts as pity revenge, but I still feel wicked when I think about it. Alright, so there is this employee who broke the mini fridge that we had. I don't even know how. I just know it wasn't working anymore after he said he tried to de-ice it. Then he started leaving cardboard gallons of milk in random places that seemed like they might be colder than the rest of the room. Almost 2 weeks ago, he brought in a gallon of milk and a small bottle of chocolate milk and stashed them in the first aid kit because it was made of metal. And obviously metal means cold like a fridge, right? So fast forward to today, I come in and the first aid kit is leaking and the room is smelly. No one knew what was in there since we rarely go into it. I work grave shift, so I'm alone the whole time, retching, gagging, and crying. I checked the first aid kit only to find the milk inside, and I knew who left it there immediately. So I text that person. Hey R, did you leave a gallon of milk and bottle of chocolate milk in the first aid kit? Yeah, that needs to be tossed. Yeah, it does. Okay, well go ahead and toss it. I'll come by to get my stuff another time. No, can you just come clean your rotting milk, please? Now I'd like to add this was at 10 p.m. and this person is up late normally, so I didn't wake him. No, I don't work there anymore, so you're going to need to clean it. After that text conversation, I called my supervisor and she was confused. Rightfully so. And she said, call Supervisor M and have him come help you. So I called Supervisor M and I said, hey M, our previous employee R left a gallon of milk to rot in the first aid kit, and now the shack smells putrid and it's leaking. Manager V told me to call you about it. Supervisor M was also confused by what I said, but he said he'd be there within the hour to take care of the situation. After that phone call, I went to the client building where I work and got some N95 masks and medical gloves so we could clean this up. The client supervisor asked me why I needed them, and when I told him, he had me repeat what I said because he couldn't believe it. About an hour passes and I'm wearing my N95 mask when Supervisor M arrives and starts cleaning up the mess. He wouldn't even let me help because it was a health hazard. I don't know what exactly is going to happen to that guy, but technically he still works for the company, just at a different site. At the very least, he will be scolded and have to attend lectures about health and safety. And that's a wrap for today's episode of K-Korner. I hope these stories have entertained you, maybe even made you think a bit. Life's a wild ride full of unexpected twists, and we're here to share those moments with you. Thank you for joining me today, and if you liked what you heard, please show your support with a like and a comment. Your feedback means the world to me. Don't forget to subscribe for more amazing stories, and remember to keep it light, fun, and easygoing. Until next time, this is Crown, signing off.